Well, I lost the footage for the Genesis walkthrough, so I'm just gonna try to do one real quick. Anyway, that one was just too long. So there was a lot of gems in there. Perhaps I'll edit it to bring out those gems, but for now I'll just do a quick walkthrough. It's not gonna be as in depth. That was like 3 hours long. But chapter 1 and 2 is the creation account. Chapter 3 is the fall in the garden. Chapter 4 is Cain and Abel's birth, and then Cain killing Abel, and then Cain having the mark put on them, and then his genealogy. Chapter 5 is Adam's genealogy. Chapter 6 is the fall of the angels cohabitating with the daughters of men, and then that happening, and then chapter 7 it goes into the flood, which that's the reason, sort of the reason for the flood. And then, well, not kind of sort of the reason, it's part of the reason, because there was a lot more going on during that time than just the angels coming down and having kids with the women and then them being giants. But it's like I said, there's a lot more. We'll get to that when we get to that. Then chapter 7, the flood, God trying to rectify. Oh, I wouldn't say trying, because trying is a word for humans, not for God. And then 8 and 9. Okay, so 7 is the flood, and then 8 we still have the flood, and Noah's trying to wait for the perfect time, and then the flood subsides. God makes the promise of the rainbow in the sky, which I think us as Christians, we really should take it back now. Some of you may know I am still in a same-sex marriage, but baby steps. There's nothing going on, by the way. It's just anyway, we need to take it back. I was never really into like the gay flag anyway. I thought it was stupid. Like, I'm like, straight people don't have colors. Why should gay people have colors? Why should we have a parade? Why should we? Why? That being said, now I'm just like, why don't we take back the rainbow? I was gonna say the flag. Why don't we take back the rainbow? Why are we so scared of them out there? Anyway, I'm not gonna make this into a rant. It's just, I get frustrated. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the walkthrough. I'll rant some other time. So the flood subsides with the rainbow. We need to take it back. And then chapter 10 is Noah and his sons and their genealogy, which is considered the Table of Nations, or dubbed the Table of Nations. Chapter 11 is focused on Nimrod and the Tower of Babel. And then the nations being split and everybody having their own tongues, which I think there's something very interesting in the Chinese language, or not the language, in their characters that, if I stick to this and we get to chapter 11, it would blow your mind, especially if you're the type of person that really don't like doing research outside of your daily life, which is not bad. Just leave it to me and I can do it. So chapter 11 is Nimrod, the rise of the Tower of Babel, and then God confounding their languages, and they all split off into different tongues, which just means languages. Chapter 12 through 23 is the call of Abram. Later on, God changes his name to Abraham, and Sarai to Sarah. We'll get into that later. Chapters 24 to 27 is Isaac and his life. 28 to 30 is Jacob and his life. 38 to 50 is Joseph and his whole situation with his brothers, and then they sell him off, and then like he is the first recorded in the Bible in human trafficking. Like, that stuff was going on. Like, just stop and think about that. Joseph was sold into trafficking. Is that how it's said? Anyway, he was human trafficked. For lack of a better term, because I'm not a smarty, he was. Okay, and then so he's in Egypt, and his, I would call it a rise, his rise into status, and then the famine, and then his brother's going over there. He's already the viceroy or vizier or whatever it's called, and then his brother's like, no, you're a spy. Anyway, we'll get to that. I love the book of Genesis. It's like a mini series within a book. And luckily God gave me a movie mind, I guess I'll say. Like, I see these in, I wouldn't say like a movie, but more like comic book, but not like what you're thinking, more like comic picture and whatever. Cartoony. Anyway, Genesis chapter 1. Oh, that's right. Hold on, wait. Excuse me. So the 7th day of the 6 days of creation is, so day 1, God creates, let there be light, and he separates the light from the darkness. And then day 2, he creates the expanse in the heavens to separate the water from the waters. And then day 3, he creates the vegetation, the trees, and the fruit-bearing trees. And then day 4, he creates the sun, moon, and stars and places them within the firmament. There's no way to get around that. The sun, moon, and the stars are inside the firmament. Let that sink in. I'll just leave it there. And when we get there, we'll get there. Call me names all you want. Day 5, God creates the living creatures, the birds and the fish and what have you. And then day 6, he creates, did I just say day 6? Day 6, he creates cattle and such, and then man. Now, I should tell you now that there's 2 schools of thoughts, well, really 3. Camp A believes that God created 2 different men, Adam and Eth HaAdam. Adam is just people like you and me and the likes. Eth HaAdam is the Adam. Eth is the Aleph and the Tav, which is a possession. We don't have a translation. Eth HaAdam. So, Camp A, they believe that there's 6-day creation, and then Adam and Eve are a completely different creation from that because of how it's. When they speak of the 6-day creation, it's just Adam, and then whenever they speak of the Adam, they refer to him. The Bible, not our English Bible, but the Masoretic text, and then the Hebrew Bible says Et HaAdam. Camp B believes no, that is not the case. The case is that Adam is in the 6th day. It's just Moses is microscoping into, or telescoping, I guess, with your eyes. You see the mountain range. You know, when you wear binoculars or a telescope, you can see more of a focal point or what have you. Yeah. Then there's the third school of thought, which shouldn't really be a thought. It's just atheists wanting to do their own thing. Oh, the creation account of man in the 1st chapter versus the creation of man in the 2nd chapter void themselves out, so neither of them could be correct, so they're both wrong. We're selfish, and we just want to do what we want to do. And the moment we're our own heads, let's just say, like, in general, humans, we're our own covering, and we are the captain of our own ship. But once we remove that and submit to the idea that there is a God, now we have 2 choices. Either A, do I fall in line what he tells me, but if I do that, I can't control anything, or do I just go against what he wants, but that will eat you up. It'll eat you up day to day. So instead, what they do is there isn't a God. I do what I want. Because let me tell you, like, once I acknowledged that there was, or even before 2017, when we were together, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to hell. And it ate me up inside for so long. But then, without even knowing what Paul wrote about the hot poker searing your conscience, every day I just told myself, you're not going to die right now. It's not that serious. And then after a while, that sting no longer like a sting. Like, it minimalized the feeling of, I hope you guys know what I'm trying to say, because I already lost it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you're trying to talk to a friend of yours or a family member that just doesn't want to hear it, you got to give them grace. I love doing air quotes because I don't really know. I just enjoy doing it. So what I mean by that is they know he's real. They just tell you they don't believe because they know that you can't read their mind. But Paul states in the book of Romans, everybody knows that there is a creator out there. They just choose to ostrich, head in the sand, because they just want to do their own thing. And because of that, God gives them up to a reprobate mind. He did that to me until one day when he woke me up, he was like, hey, it's either me or the world. And I was like, well, you know what? Now that you have introduced yourself to me, like, what do you do? Anyway, whatever. I sure can shoot off the hip and get off track. So let's not. The atheists, they just don't want to believe. So just let them be. In the book of Revelation, in the ending, it says, and I'll turn to there. The first, let me do this. The last, in the end of Revelation, Jesus states, this is why it's important to stay in the Word and get yourself an audio Bible, Bible.is. You can pick that up in the App Store for both, not Microsoft, really, Apple and Android. If I can navigate this Archaeology Bible, that would be great. Okay, I think I found it. Okay, when you're trying to minister or talk to or preach to somebody and they're not hearing it, you've already done your part, okay? You can't wake them up. Only God can wake them up. But he can use you to wake them up, but perhaps at that moment, not what you said at that moment. Let's say that you tell person A, hey, you shouldn't do this because XYZ in the Bible says this, and they don't want to hear it. You've already done your part. Who's to say 2-3 months, 2-3 years, a couple of whatever, a decade goes by, and then somebody else tells them, hey, you shouldn't do that because this. What you told them previous is going to come to their mind. And like, oh, wait a second, I guess he was right or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. So in the 22nd chapter of Revelation at verse 10, it says, and he said to me, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. Let the evildoer still do evil, and the filthy still be filthy, and the righteous still do right, and the holy still be holy. You did your part. Just let them do whatever, because if now it falls on him or her or them. Okay, so I guess that's what I want to say. So you just, oh, my paper creased. I hate it when that happens. Anyway, so whenever you have buddies that don't want to hear it, just keep it moving. So I already told you about the camps. Okay, so chapter 3 is the fall in the garden, but I would like to ask that you guys slow down when you're reading, because I know for me, it wasn't until 2019, there or about, that I read this verse again, and these words stood out to me so much so that I had to write a little synopsis on it, and I should put it into digits and add it to my blog, which I have not. Anyway, whatever. So whenever we read, sometimes we tend to read it the way we see it, or not see words, because when we're reading, we start to daydream, but we're still reading, you know what I mean? So I remember coming to this point where it says, so then the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise. She took of its fruit and ate it, and she also gave it to her husband who was with her. That blew my mind. Because this whole time, ever since I was a kid, Like I've said before, if you watch my very first video back in 2017, and I give you a quick bio on me, my mom tried to raise us Jehovah's Witness. And I had so many questions. Where am I going into this? Oh yeah. So ever since then, so I had a bunch of questions. They couldn't answer it. And I'm just like, I don't understand why you can't answer it. Like, y'all read it all the time. They're just simple questions. And I'm only a 7-year-old. Like, answer my questions. So I remember when I'm like, hey mom, why is there so much evil in the world? This, that, and third. Oh, well, Eve ate from the apple, blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, I had such, not hatred. And I almost want to use the word contention, but I don't all the way know the definition to that word. And so I'm not going to try to sound smart and use that word in the wrong definition or meaning or what have you. But I had feelings towards her. And I was always upset, especially when I had my period. Like, oh, why did you listen to that snake? And now I'm on my period and it hurts because of you. Kelly Clarkson. It wasn't Kelly Clarkson's fault. What I mean by that is I'm using her song as a reference because I do that a lot. And fair warning now, if you are a saran wrap, thin-skinned person that wants to leave the world out there, I'm sorry. My brain thinks in the world. I don't mean like the worldly world, but just my surroundings. So I'm gonna leave it there. If you don't like it, get now. Anyway, moving right along. Back to the point. So I came up to this part and I was like, son of a biscuit. This dude was with her the whole daggone time. The whole time. The snake was talking to Eve. Adam was right there listening to the conversation. And at no point did he say, hey, babe, listen, time out. Don't listen to him. I already told you God said we couldn't eat it. Now you telling him we can't eat it and we can't touch it. You adding to it. First of all, I never told you he said that, but that's cool. Don't touch it. That's another hedge around it. Why are you listening to this snake feeding you lies? I already told you. Nope, that ain't what happened. She said, oh, you want to tell me? He was like, oh, you've done it now. But in the book of Timothy, I suck at the New Testament, like where exactly to go, so I'm not going to, but it's in 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 14, where it says that Adam wasn't deceived, that it was Eve. So that being said, if we put that puzzle together, we get a bigger picture that she was deceived by the serpent, the glistening one. And when she ate from it, he was like, dude, I love you, so I guess I'm just gonna be in a fallen state too. And he ate from it too. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna have to apologize for all these years of me talking junk about her, because I was wrong. I'm gonna have words for both of them, but I'm gonna have words for Laban, because that double crosser. I like Jacob. Anyway, next. So they play hot potato for a little while. God's like, hey, this is going to be in chapter 3, verse 14, and they're on. Anyway, we're going to move on to chapter 5. We have Adam's genealogy. No, I'm sorry. Chapter 4. So Adam knows his wife Eve. She conceives and have Cain. Then Abel comes around, an offering. Cain offers the fruits of the ground, and Abel offers him the firstlings of the calves or of his animals and the fat portions thereof. Cain gets all wroth and poopy doops, and he ends up killing his brother. And God's like, "Hey, where's your brother Abel?" And he's like, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Every time I read that, I read it with an attitude, and I just like want to. I'm sorry. But you don't talk to your parents. Like, I can't stand when kids talk to their parents any other kind of way and that the parents just let them do it. Oh, I hate it. But in this case, it's a different story, because sometimes when I feel like when people are being sarcastic towards God or negative towards him. He's just like, do what you do, boo. Do what you do, because when them eyes close and you die, specifically die, because you can like blink or close your eyes or go to sleep. But when your eyes close and that heartbeat flatlines, and then the next time you open your spiritual eyes and I'm standing right in front of you like, F me now what? Remember what you said? Here, matter of fact, let me press record. Remember when you said this? Ahora qué? Y ahora? Oh my goodness. So I picture God like, dude, say what you want now, but wait until it's judgment time. Anyway, he might have like a choir of angels. Whatever. See, that's what I'm saying. My brain, the way it thinks, whatever. So, am I my brother's keeper? He's like, hey, what did you do? The blood of the voice of your brother's blood, blah, is crying to me from the ground. And it's almost like you already know what he did. Why you asking Cain what he did? See, God gives us the opportunity to confess first. I've adopted that a couple of years ago, and now I've been catching my daughter and some stuff. I always give her the opportunity. Well, she's good about it now. She is almost 16, and she's a gorgeous woman. I'm gonna have to buy a shotgun and handcuffs. I jest. Anyway, so by this point, God puts a mark on Cain, lest anyone finds him and kills him, sevenfold is done to him. So could you imagine if, like, I don't know, they bludgeon him to death? Sevenfold from that, it's like your brains are going to be everywhere, and then that's going to be mashed brain potato. Why do I do this to myself? I don't know. Chapter 5. Okay, then chapter 4 also goes into Cain's lineage. I mean, his genealogy. And then chapter 5 is Adam's genealogy. But then something interesting also happens in chapter 5, because it says, okay, let me just go to Bible Hub. Because whenever I can't find it and I know I'm in the right spot, but I'm too lazy to keep reading, mainly for videos, I just come straight over here, and then men began to call on the name. Okay, so it is Genesis chapter 4. Verse 26. Okay. So to Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. At that time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. But what I want to say here is that it should not be rendered in that way. The word huchal, that is to bore or to pierce. So pretty much that word means to like profane. And what were they doing around this time in chapter 6? The daughters of man was mating with the sons of God. I'm not going to go too into it right now because for time's sake, and I want to do more like chapter by chapter teaching or sharing, because I'm not a teacher, I'm a sharer. And then chapter 5 goes into the descendants of Adam all the way to Noah. And then in chapter 6 we have when men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive, and they took as their wives any they chose. That seems to imply that girl had no choice. Come here. And could you imagine, okay, so they bore to them giants, gigantes. There's not a discrepancy, but there's a situation there in the word gigantes in the Greek means earthborn, but it also could mean giant. So it's like a happy accident how they translated it. There's other people that believe that in this thing called the Sethite theory, where the sons of God are the sons of Seth, and that the daughters of men were the daughters of Cain. First of all, there was no law at that time stating that Adamites couldn't marry, like there was no law in place that the Kenites couldn't marry into the Sethites. Like, there was no law at that time. So, and on top of that, kissing cousins don't produce giants. They just don't. There's a reason where that Sethite theory came from, and it's in the intro to the book of Enoch as to why. Again, the first book of Enoch, not second and third Enoch. The first Enoch 1, or the Ethiopic Enoch, or the Coptic Enoch, whatever, it was in the Bible at one point. I do have a 1611. Anyway, that's not the point, because people, we shouldn't be fighting within the body, so it's whatever. It's just cool. Just know that kissing cousins don't produce giants. Now, I would say that fallen angels are not demons. Fallen angels are angels in their fallen state. They are still around. I believe they're held and locked in chains, but put into a fashion where they can watch the children that they've produced with these women, watch them die. And again, that's in the book of Enoch, if you're interested. I think I got it on my Kindle for like $4.99, and then you can pick it up for like double that if you want the paperback or whatever. But what was I saying? The demons are the disembodied spirits of these giants. See, when there's no such thing as ghosts. I used to think that there was a such thing as ghosts, because boy, do I have some stories of way back when. But anyway, so Satan and his boys don't care if you believe in them or not. They will prefer that you don't believe in them, because if they don't exist, then God doesn't exist. And if ghosts are real, then there's no heaven or whatever. I'll call it heaven, even though I did just state that there's nobody in heaven. But since that is the common, not consensus, but the common thought, or I guess I'll just stick to that. Since that is the thought that we have, that either the believers die, they go to heaven, or non-believers or even believers believe that there's ghosts. Like, you can't have it both ways. Whatever. There's no such thing as ghosts, just demons. Demons are fine thinking that what you're seeing on those real videos, some of them are real, some of them are like, dude, I saw the string. But those that just like, I don't know, man, that was kind of iffy. They're fine with you just believing that they're ghosts, because then that means they don't exist. And if they don't exist, then God doesn't exist. I hope I made myself clear. So, I remember saying like, there's no such thing as ghosts, just demons, because all the lights were out in my job, and it's really creepy, and I work at a warehouse. And the girl next to me was like, that's worse. I'm like, it's not worse, man. Demons have to bow down to the name of Jesus. Like, they just do. So I just so happen to believe in that name. And so through that name, I get power. Like, I don't get power, but there's power in that name. And by me invoking that name, and that word has a negative medium-ish connotation. Connotation. Did I just say that right? Sometimes my brain does. Anyway, connotation. Whatever. Moving right along. No such thing as ghosts, just demons. Okay. Anyway, so because of all of this, it grieved God's heart. Because, okay, so the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of their thoughts, of the thoughts of their hearts, were evil continually. Like, continually. This is like, how am I going to get on top? How am I going to get my way? Oh, do I have to kill this person to get it? Oh, well, like, just when you read, slow it down. I know sometimes we're like, okay, I'll just get a couple of chapters in and then I'll go back to watching whatever. And we end up like speed reading through it. And you miss these things. Like, these people in chapter 6 were just like on some other level. And interestingly enough, remember in Matthew, Jesus says, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Now, if we are to believe, and I do believe that this could be the last generation, like, I really feel, I'm not date setting here, but I think it could be soon. And by soon, I don't mean like tomorrow. I mean like, what is that? That cliche? You know what I'm trying to say. No man knows the day or the hour. That, yeah, see? Y'all just sent me that love over here. I don't mean that. I'm just saying, judging by what we read and what's going on, we can see that it's getting close. It's getting close to the point that if you don't have that vaccine, they're not going to let you in. Luckily for me, I'm in Florida, and this DeSantis, like, really, I'm not getting that damn shot. I don't care. Say what you want. I shouldn't say it like that, because that causes a divide within the body. If you got it and you're Christian, hey, that's cool. I'm just not going to get it because of the stuff that's in it. And this illness has a recovery rate. And if you're healthy, then you shouldn't really worry now. And I don't mean to make this into one of those, like, branch off to this, but if you just don't want to, because you have an elderly family member or whatever, just then you go ahead and be safe. I'm just going to leave it like that. So, because man was wicked continuously. Now, the word wicked, the etymology of that word way back when was, okay, so think of a rope, right? And you see how you can undo that rope? And then you can undo that rope with the strings and then undo that. So it's like individual and it's like this, twisted like that. That's where they get the word wick, as in the candle. And so when somebody was like really evil, they would use that analogy to describe the person. Like, oh, that person's wicked because they're twisted. Okay, listen, I love useless facts. I will pass down as many as I can to you. Boop. So because they were wicked, God was like, I'm gonna have to press Control Alt Delete out this, because look, Jesus, look, hey, Michael, Mir, look at these people. You know that's the third wagon he stole. It's the third one. This day, we're gonna have to do something about it. And Jesus is like, well, I mean, they can breathe all they want. They can't breathe on the water. Bet. Yeah, let's just open the windows and then just... Yeah, all in favor? And then boom, le flood. That's how it happened. I saw a video on YouTube that God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit had that conversation. I think Gabriel was recording it on his iPhone 16 Pro Max Deluxe LMLOP. Anyway, so the flood came, and he was before the flood came, he was instructed to build the ark at this. And then now this is where, again, we tend to read things. I want a sandwich with lettuce and tomatoes and cheese. Oh, I don't even know where that came from. But we tend to read our own ideas and what we learn in Sunday school. I've never been to a Sunday school before. Like I said, my mom raised us, or tried to raise us, Jehovah's Witness. But this is like another atheist useless factoid. or it's not useless when it's you using it against them. So they were like, oh, well, how did Noah fit all those grown animals in the ark? Come on, y'all. God has wisdom on speed dial in his iPhone 16 Pro Max Max Deluxe LMLOP. And when he was like, hey, wisdom, mirror, I'm gonna need you to come. Oh, you're already here? Oh, okay, I see you. He opens the door. She's like, hey, what's up? All right, look. Jesus and I and the Holy Spirit, I call him Eleazar. That's the name I gave him because that means helper in the Old Testament. So Jesus, Eleazar, and I, we came up with the plan because them fools down there, they acting a fool. She said, oh, okay, so what can I do for you? So what should we tell Noah? He's the only one that we're in. She said, okay, well, you know, that ark theory sounds good, but why don't we just make those animals babies? And if they're birds or reptiles, they can be in like egg form, and they'll hatch while they're, the flood is happening, and then Noah can feed them. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. That's how it happened. I saw the video on the UBTube. Michael recorded it. Yeah, he has a iPhone 16 Pro Max Deluxe LMLP. I saw the video. I should make that video. Anyway, the point is, God ain't stupid. Why would he have a big old dumpy elephant in there bumping his badonk everywhere? It's a baby. He had cubs and kids. Kids, not human kids. And all of those things he just had, it was baby aminals on the ark. Somebody did the math, put all these proto animals, because it wasn't like 2 Chihuahuas, 2 Rottweilers. It was probably like the proto dogs, the wolvies, were in there. No more. So, whenever your atheist buddy or a person who wants to encounter you at work, first of all, I don't argue God stuff or biblical stuff at work. I just, I'll tell you why. That's a place of business. Yes, we are protected by the whatever religious act, but Satan can't stand us. And the moment you open your mouth, try to preach and do all this other stuff, it's just, first of all, okay, what I'm not saying is not to. Because there's a time and place for everything, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And although we can and should rely heavily on God and trust that he has our back, and he does, all I'm saying is, I just don't mix work with that stuff. Now, if we're off duty and a conversation like that takes place, I'll go in on it. But if I'm at work and the topic comes up, I'll say my piece, and which has happened before. Oh no, but this, and then just be like, well, I don't believe it. Okay. Plus, I'm getting paid per hour to do my job, not to preach or whatever. Where was I? The ark. Okay, so then God shuts him in chapter 8, and the rain. Can you imagine? Building the ark. Yes, I'm about to go into story mode. Can you imagine? It has not rained. See, we have to put ourselves in their shoes. There was no rain, we suspect, as it stated in chapter 1, that everything was getting watered by the mist and all that other stuff. Could you imagine God telling Noah, hey, Noah, on his iPhone 16 Pro Max Max Deluxe, hey, I'm gonna holler at you. I'll be there. Noah's like, okay. Oh, okay. You're at the door. All right. So he just, cause he, and just could like teleport there. And he's like, look at here. These fools are acting a fool. I need you to build this and do it to these specifications do what you do. Now, I don't know where they are located, but the Middle East, if you have not been there, I've been there 3 times. The only place there's water is the Mediterranean. You know, like the Mediterranean Sea area, and then like the little Gulf of Aqaba and the little Horn of Africa. But there's nothing else like Turkey, you know, like wherever he was building this, these people's like, look at this retard right here. And I don't mean retard like mentally retarded. I mean like, everybody please just grow a thick skin. Look at this person right here. What, Noah, what are you building? Oh, I'm building an ark because y'all acting a fool. God's about to just go crazy up in chunk. Y'all gonna be dead. So either you can do the right thing, come help me build this, or I mean, but how is he gonna make the flood? Like, there isn't water, and like, how is that thing even gonna float? Oh no, he's gonna make it rain. Rain, bro. What's rain? I don't know what's rain. Like, you know, he's creepy, man. He's creepy. Him and his kids. Why are we even here? Come on. Let's go watch the Duck Dynasty. Anyway, I don't know. I don't watch that stuff. So I picture stuff happening like that. There was no rain at that time, we suspect. The fact that he's building an ark away from water, like, what are you doing? This dude was building it. It didn't rain until like the day of. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 7th day of the month, the foundations of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of heaven opened up, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. Can you imagine? I've been to the Philippines where the monsoon would just hit for like 2 hours and it's just up to your knees. Any higher than that, I'm not walking in that stuff because females have an open wound and that black water ain't going in mine. Anyway, I could just imagine 40 days and 40 nights. And like, old girl's like, Harold, that water is about to come. It's 20 feet away from the house. Then the next day, Harold, you really should build a hedge because the water's getting closer to the front porch. All right, honey, I'll get to it later, or whatever. I don't know. And then finally, like, it's in the house. Then now you can't see that hill that was back there and the tree's almost gone. And you're just like, what is going on? I can't imagine. 40 days and 40 nights of just raining. That'll drive me crazy, but I'd probably sleep like a baby if there was proper drainage. I probably wouldn't sleep like a baby if there was no drainage because I'm like, dude, we're going to have to start building whatever he's building because something ain't right. Anyway, 40 days and 40 nights was rain. And everything with the breath of life went inside there, 2 and 2. 7 pairs of clean animal and 2 pairs of unclean animal. Something like that. We'll get there when we do the walkthrough. Okay, so this ark is just floating about for about a year, and then God remembers Noah. Now, when it says God remembered Noah, it's not like, oh, that's right. We did flood the... What were you guys... Y'all was watching Dancing with the Stars? Y'all was watching it again, huh? Y'all let me forget about... That did not happen like that. What? The Hebrew language is very... Oh, I can't remember the way it... Okay, before I post this, I'll put the word down here. Right here. Because I kind of could edit. I just don't really like to, but I'm going to do it because I have to practice because I'm going to start making little shorts. Anyway, I don't mean shorts to wear. I mean shorts to watch. So God remembered Noah. He was like, oh, dagnabbit, let me make this water subside. And so the water, but before that, this is why I say we need to take back the rainbow. Like I stated before, like I really never cared much for the gay flag or the gay colors or anything. I'm like, well, I don't. First of all, I never understood the concept. Like when I was 16, I had my first little girlfriend. Then I had, first girlfriend was about 14 going on 15. And then I joined the Job Corps. And I started getting more girlfriends from there. And then I joined the art. Dude, I have like a gang of ex-girlfriends. Like if they all came knocking on my door, I'd be like, please, no. No, I'm kidding. They can't find me. Nah, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but back in the dizzle, when I was like, oh, I love girls, I never understood, like, the gay flag. I'm like, what does all the colors of the rainbow have to do with homosexuality? I never understood it. And then I became a Christian, and then someone said, yeah, the devil likes to twist everything and make, like in Isaiah. I think it's Isaiah where they, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, or something like that. So Satan likes to do that. And so he would mix them things around, and it made perfect sense. Because God said, where is he put his bow in the cloud. Yeah, here we go. Chapter 9, verse 12. And God said, this is a sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you. For all generations, for all future generations, I have set my bow in the clouds. He set his bow in the clouds. Satan always has to take that and twist it around. And he was like, well, for us, I guess the most evil group would be the homosexuals for now. I hate when the back of my teeth have that feeling. I wouldn't say that the homosexuals are the most evil. I think pedophiles are. At least 2 gay people are consenting. But I'm not here to like defend them. Sin is sin. But I'd rather be gay than a baby toucher. That is, I can't. I have 2 baby nieces, and I would probably go to jail for life if somebody, anyway. Satan, then that's when I realized, oh, okay, yeah, I guess he would. So now what? God promised us, that's his covenant. That's a covenant between him and us, that he was not going to destroy the earth via water. Are you going to fly a flag? A rainbow flag? No, you're scared because you don't want people to think that you're gay. Why? Because Satan did that. Now we're over here cowering like, oh, I don't want somebody to think that I'm gay. We need to take that flag back. But we're too scared. We're too non-confrontational or whatever it is. I don't understand what's wrong with... Oh, my goodness. Let me stop because we've just become pushovers. The body of Christ has. Because when the time comes, there's going to be a bunch of us that's going to take that mark. But, oh, but you don't understand. I have kids. Okay, so what? If they die of starvation, oh, well. God got their back. In the wilderness, he fed us, not us, but, you know, the Israelites with manna, quail, and water. That's all we need. That quail has it has lean meats, but you can eat the organs and all that stuff and get the fat. It probably would have gotten old quick for them or whatever, but we just need to learn how to trust God. I think a lot of people, including Christians, have gotten a way of trusting in him. I would say myself included. That's a story for another time. But all right, so now chapter 10, like I said before, the table of nations. This is where all you get all the begats, and Japheth came from this guy. So Japheth had Gomer, Magog, Medai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tyrus. And then the son of Gomer had Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Tagomar. I would like to state that Ashkenaz is where they get Ashkenazi Jews. Judah or Jacob didn't have an Ashkenaz in his. So I'm sorry. Like, I love everybody. But them people that's in their country right now, that ain't Israel. But whatever. Another story for another time. I'm probably going to get like a bunch of dislikes for me saying that. But do your research. I've been to the Middle East. I know what they look like. Okay, so Ham fathered Cush and Egypt and Put and Canaan. And then Nimrod came from Cush, and he began to be a mighty man before the Lord. And I'm not really going to go into all these names. And then the Tower of Babel is chapter 11. And I wanted to say that this is where, like, God said, okay, we need to figure something out because they're about to do something, and whatever they choose to do right now, they can probably do it. So we need to confound their languages, blah, 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 blah. So they confounded their language and what have you. But if you go into like Chinese characters, before they changed it to what it is today, and I think that it was originally something, and then some emperor or president or something, it's been a long time since I did that research, and then he changed it to something, and then some other guy was like, no, we need to bring it back to that. I might be mixing it up in my mind, but the word for garden and deceit and forbidden and Satan or evil, all that are actually, if you break it down, like garden is two people and trees. And then I'll do a video on that one for sure, like, because it's extremely interesting. You can do it on your own, or you can wait for me to do it in like 5 years, because y'all know I don't be doing, but I have been wanting to do a video on that because I think it's very important when like just another peg to post up the tent and prop it up God's word. I mean, not that we have to, it stands on its own, but I mean that to like help minister or evangelize or whatever to people that don't believe in, like, yeah, but the more yeah buts, you know, like, okay, not like the yeah but like when they're like, yeah, but what about this, boom, you already have an answer. So the more answers you have for the yeah buts, the better, because Peter says that we should always be ready to give an answer to them yeah buts. All right, so chapter 11, so we talk about Terah and all that, from like Shem going down the line to Terah and whatever. Now, the book of Jasher, I like the extraness that it brings to Abraham's life. Now, again, I'm not saying this is what happened, but it makes sense when you put later into context. So in the book of Jasher, it states that Terah was a captain in Nimrod's army. And long story short, dude had money. And y'all keep it like that. And so when we get to whatever chapter that they steal Lot and his whatever, and then Abraham goes with 318 men trained in his own house. Abraham was not some traveling Bedouin, poor or whatever. Like, that dude had money because his father came from money. They had money. Just, okay. His brother dies, and so he takes on responsibility of Lot, and the book of Jasher explains. This time I really will say explains with quotation marks, because like I said, there's other parts of the book of Jasher, like specifically the portions of Noah where, not Noah, I'm sorry, Moses. I'm just like, I don't know if that really happened that way. I don't know if that really happened that way with Joseph. But okay, so chapter 12, God calls Abraham, tells him to leave his father's house and your country and go to the place where I'm going to give you, but he doesn't listen. He keeps following his father, and then his father kicks the can, and he's like, hey man, didn't I tell you to go leave your family? Nope, he took Lot. Should have listened. We should all listen, but we don't never listen. We like to talk junk about these characters in the Bible, but we do the same thing. I know I do. Now, okay, so chapter 13, Abraham and Lot separated. And verse 2 says, now Abraham was very rich in livestock and in silver and in gold, and he journeyed from the Negev as far as Bethel, blah, blah, blah. I do have a book on the maps, so when we go through this, we'll do it. Going hard. He journeyed, blah, blah, blah. So we already know that. And then chapter 14, there's a fight between 4 kings against 5. And then see here in chapter 14, verse 14 says that when Abraham heard that his kinsmen had been taken captive, he led forth his trained men born in his house, 318 of them. Damn, that dude has an entourage. Oh my goodness, like I can't even deal with the 2 humans that I have living in this house plus a dog and a cat. Chapter 15. God has a covenant with Abraham. Then 16. Okay, well, 15 is when he has a covenant with Abraham. That's when he promises that Sarah was gonna bear a child. See the name Eleazar. Let me go over here real quick, so y'all know I'm not like blowing smoke up your skirt. Genesis 15. Okay, so Eleazar is number 461. Lazarus is also, it's like the Greek version of the name Eleazar. It means God is help, but in other places it could be rendered as comforter. And I don't mean like the one you throw over your body when it's cold and you just want to. Although I wonder if that's where that word comes from. Like it's a comforter because it makes you comfortable when it's cold outside. See, this is how my brain thinks. Anywho, 16, Sarai and Abraham's wife had borne him no children and had a female servant. See, this is where I don't understand the whole like deal between Haggai or Sarah and Haggai. Like, dude, you told him to go into her to have a kid, and now she gets a kid. I mean, granted, in Sarah's defense, it's not rendered this way in English. She says, "May the wrong done to me be on you. I gave my servant to your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, she looked on me with contempt." So try to see this in Haggai's point of view. Hagar, jeez. Haggai the prophet. Try to see it in Hagar's point of view. I'm not going to call her nothing because servants serve their purpose too. And like every life is precious before God. But when you're, I guess, a servant, you're considered nothing, like especially the way they treat them, right? And then now, like you're a servant to the master, your master. And now you're pregnant, me, a nobody. I'm pregnant with your kid, and it could be a boy. Now that means you went from nothing to like you're under Sarah. And she was probably like, "Oh, what, you want me to get you water? I'm pregnant. Boo-boo. I ain't gonna get one of your other ones. Remember, no, you did this. I'm tired. My feet are swollen. This baby's pressing on my bladder. I gotta pee all the time. I might piss myself. I don't know. Okay, obviously I'm modernizing. But I could just imagine the strife between them. And then Abraham and the covenant of circumcision. So I've learned through my research that The waiting the 8 days to circumcise a baby is not just happenstance. So when a child is born, they're born with a certain level of these two chemicals, which I will put here if I remember. I'm gonna do it. So when the child is at 7 days, it's at 100 and something percent, and then at the 8th day, it levels off, and this chemical helps prevent clotting. There. Ain't that something? How many times have you read the Bible? Like, but 8 days? Why 8 days and not right when the baby's born? Because the baby doesn't have that chemical, and if you snip the tip, it might not stop bleeding. First of all, that don't sound pleasant. I don't care if you're a baby or a grown-up. So 17 in circumcision. 18, the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, and he sat by the door of the tent. This is when God came to Abraham with his 2 other angels, and they're about to go angels gone wild at Sodom and Gomorrah, just like rain downhill. 19, God rescues Lot. And can you imagine getting, like, these poor little girls, and I don't know how old they are, but these poor young girls really probably did think that the whole world was destroyed, and they had to, I'm sorry, I can't sleep with my dad. I love him to bits, but his bits ain't, I can't. Lot, his wife, becomes a pillar of salt because she looked back. And when I was a kid, I always wondered, like, why did he turn into a pillar of salt? Just because she looked back. But someone stated how when she looked, completely theory here, when she looked back, she probably looked back at, like, oh, my comfortable life or whatever. But when I read it, because I can only speak for myself, I know how nosy humans are. And I would have been turned into a pillar of salt so bad, because I would have been running backwards just to see, like, wow, what's going on? But now I believe that when they said don't even look back, in the vein of don't look back at the life you had, don't look back at how good you had it, or, like, for instance, sometimes I'll look at Catherine and be like, if only I could just go back to that life, be with her and love on her. But I can't. That's going to take me away from him. So I guess in that context, I would have been turned into a pillar of salt if I did look back. Does that make sense? I hope that did make sense. Okay. Chapter 20 is when Abraham journeys to the territory of the Negev and lived between Kadesh and Shur. And he sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, king of Gerar, I'm getting tickly throat, sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream. I can't get to this part. I always laugh because, see, this is why I tell people this book is hilarious to me sometimes. Like, God has a sense of humor, at least the way I read things. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, behold, you are a dead man. I would scream so loud. If I'm sleeping, I'll sleeping. And now I'm having a dream, and God's like, you're dead. Please don't kill me. He held the ball, remember? Ace Ventura, if you guys, whatever. You know, nothing but the 90s. So I always laugh, especially when I'm listening to it in the audio Bible. Because the way the voice, I don't know. It always made me laugh. But I even wrote it here. Always makes me laugh. he pretty much tells him like, hey man, you lied to me. Old girl's your wife. You told me that she's your sister. One of my men could have easily lain with her and defiled everything. Like, y'all need to go. So he sent him off like, hey, look, man, Sarah, here's your brother back. And here's a bunch of ewe lambs and all this other stuff. Please leave us now. 21 is the birth of Isaac. God protects Hagar and Ishmael. There's some consternation between Abimelech's servant and Abraham. Abraham digs wells and they keep covering it over. He's like, hey man, what's up with your peoples? I thought we were cool. I mean, we cool. Oh, aren't we cool? Now, well, let me tell you, your peoples, I keep digging these wells and they keep covering it back with dirt. And it's like, oh, well, hold on. Let's do a covenant here, or a treaty or whatever. Chapter 22 is the sacrifice of Isaac. And this is also the first time the word love is used. So I would also like to bring forth here, that Isaac was not a kid like the Sunday school teachers like to portray, or what we think, because Isaac carried the wood that would consume his body, and a child of his age wouldn't, if he were to be 11 or 12 like the movies and TV shows and Sunday school and the pictures would like to have you think, a child would not be able to carry that much wood. Like, their body, he doesn't have the muscle on his frame to hold that for the distance that they traveled. I mean, they did travel a certain distance, and then like on donkey or whatever, and Abraham was like, hey, y'all stay here, me and the boys gonna go walk over there, we'll come back in 3 days. So Isaac had to carry the wood that would have been used to consume his body for at least 3 days. I don't know if they took breaks or swapped out, but that's what the Bible says. And then the word for young men, the word young men is na'ar. It could mean a boy, a lad, youth, retainer. But I say that to say here, either the two young men that he brought with him were about, because what's his name? Josephus states that Isaac could have been anywhere like 25 years old. There's other people that believe he could have been 30. We don't really know what, like, okay, it's one thing to, how we use a word in our language is not the same way they would use. So a youth to us might be what, junior high school or middle school up until like graduating high school or whatever. Whereas another country might consider a youth to be middle school or whatever equivalency they have to like maybe 30 years old. You know what I mean? So the word for his young men and the boy are the same word. Yeah, na'ar. Na'ar. So either these two men were young boys, or, and then, so Isaac then would be a young boy, or they're not young boys. So it's either or. They're not young men, or they're young men and Isaac is also a young man. Does that make sense? Okay, 23. Sarah dies. She is the only female recorded in the Bible that they gave the date of her death. The only one. I think that's the only thing of note for chapter 24. Well, I mean, she's 127. Dang, my grandfather died last year at 108 years old. I can't imagine 127. I'd be ready like, oh, ain't got no teeth, can't chew my food. But she was hot, I can tell you that much. Like, it states that Sarah was hot. Okay, they didn't say it in those words, but she was the looker, a knockout, and she was already well in her 80s or 90s or there or about. Chapter 24, Isaac and Rebekah. So 25 is the death of Abraham and his other descendants with Keturah. And every time I read the word Keturah, it reminds me of ketchup. I don't know why. 26, God's promise to Isaac. And the same Abimelech thing with him lying. Oh, that's my sister. I mean, no, that's my wife. 27, Isaac blesses Jacob. And then, so 27, they have Esau and Jacob. And Esau sells his birthright to Jacob over a bowl of lentil soup, which was a red lentil soup. And Esau was in the field for like mad long. The book of Jasher says that he was out and that he killed Nimrod at this, like yammed him right in the eye with a bow, and he was scared. I think he even chopped him up with Nimrod's own sword or something. And then okay, so switch over to the Bible. He comes in like, hey, let me get one of those lentils. He's like, sell me your birthright. And then when Esau was like, dude, I'm about to die. What good is a birthright to me? Just give it to me. I guess, like, here's my birthright, and let me get my last meal before these guardsmen come and just cut me down. Again, take that with a grain of salt. So, chapter 28. Jacob is sent to Laban. And then Esau marries an Ishmaelite in verse 6. Jacob has some dreams in verse 10 of chapter 28. Chapter 29, Jacob marries Leah and Rachel. Can you imagine? For those of you that have not read this yet, spoil alert. Could you imagine going to your mom's kindred and you meet your uncle? He has 2 girls, which is another reason. And when we go through like the chapter by chapter, and I'll break this down as to why God allowed Sarah to wait so long before she had Isaac, and that before, there's a reason for everything, and I'll bring that out when the time comes. Okay, I don't want to spoil it right now because it's like super duper. It's a cool concept. I don't mean concept as in it's an idea, but just a theory. Although I could state that it is just a theory because I don't know for sure. But pretty confident it's not a theory. Neither here nor there. So Jacob goes, okay, so could you imagine like shaking on, okay, I'm going to work for you for 7 years in return for your daughter. You do the 7 years and this dude pulls an okie doke. You already happy with wine in your system. You're kind of like not really there. It's already nighttime because they had the dinner or whatever. And all they have is candles, which is like, this is probably brighter than the candles of the day. Probably, I don't know, because they were just as smart as we were. And we're like dumb. If the electricity goes down, we gonna be a bunch of dumb rocks walking around here. How do I even make fire? I'm gonna be all right. I hope most of y'all gonna be all right too. But the normies out there that just want to Netflix and chill, they ain't gonna make it. Anyway, neither here nor there. Side note, that was a side note. So, could you imagine going to sleep? I'm not going to sleep. It's nighttime, you got some wine in you. You're aroused because all you keep thinking is, oh, I'm going to get it tonight. And you get it that night. And you wake up in the morning and it's Leah. Put that into perspective or consideration. I'd be pissed too. Like, hey, man, what is this evil? What did he say? Chapter 29, verse 21 says, Then Jacob said to Laban, this is after the 7 years had passed, give me my wife that I may go into her. Like, this dude was ready spaghetti. Like, ready. He had that spaghetti sauce all over it. Probably had the garlic bread and everything. Garlic bread. Anyway, says that, give me my wife that I may go into her, for my time is completed. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast. But in the evening, it's the wintertime. Evening is about 5 o'clock, 5:30. By the time 6, 7 o'clock roll around, it's dark. darkness. And you know that, well, if you don't know, now you know. Okay, now, if you don't know, them kind of feasts will go on like all day long until people are like super full, happy, they dancing and all that stuff because they didn't know how to party back then. So, but okay, in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. And in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me?" Yo, first of all, payback for you deceiving your brother. Okay, I hate it when people say that. Like, oh, God told Rebecca the older was going to serve the younger. So it was technically already ordained by God that this was going to happen. So when I hear people in their YouTube channels, the sermons saying that Jacob was a deceiver and all this stuff, it was already ordained. He was just fulfilling prophecy. Unless the prophecy was fulfilled. Anyway, that's another story for another time. But old dude was like, he pulled the okie doke on him. I wouldn't know and like, how did you not know it was Leah? There had to have been like, you didn't see her face? I mean, even today in modern times when the room is dark, I can still tell a face. Like, you spent 7 years, did Leah not talk? Did she not say, "Oh yes, daddy, I like it like that"? Okay, listen, I know that's a little explicit, but this is not for kids. You'll be all right. Something had to give it away. That's why I think dude was on the sauce. Chapter 30. Rachel saw that. Okay, so before chapter 30 and then after that whole wedding debacle, Jacob agrees to serve Laban another 7 years for Rachel, but he didn't have to wait the 7 week. He just had to complete the week with Leah because marriage ceremonies lasted up to 7 days back then. Whereas today it's just like 1 day because we can't afford it. So chapter 30 and on is the battle of the babies. But this is when, Jacob and 4 women. Chapter 32, Jacob fears Esau, which kind of gets on my nerves because God promised him that everything was going to be all right. And then he wants to bow 7 times in front of his brother and calls himself his servant. He refers to himself as Esau's servant when, like, dude, you just wrestled God. The angel of God means Jesus, but so Jacob was wrestling the angel of the Lord, aka Jesus, before he came down in the flesh for so long that Jesus had to cheat and dislocate his hip. I'm not saying he's cheating, okay? Just figure of speech. And now you want to be all scared of your brother. Well, in his defense, his brother did have an entourage of like, okay, Book of Jasher. The Book of Jasher says, no, just as a side note here, I want to say that in the Book of Jasher, which I'm not canonizing, okay? Don't keyboard warrior me. But it states that Esau had like 400 peeps. I might have been scared too, but me being me and having access to this, which he did not have access to this teaches me how not to fear nobody but God. But he didn't have this, so I guess I can see how he was kind of like scared of his brother. 34, the Defiling of Dinah. So chapter 35, God blesses and renames Jacob. Chapter 36, you get descendants of Esau. Let me just make sure. Okay, so before 36, the death of Rachel and Isaac. Boo. Let me see. Yeah, this is just 37. Joseph has dreams. We're almost there, guys. So Joseph has some more dreams, and we don't see this animosity between Joseph and his brothers. But if you take it back to the Hebrew, or even just read it in modern English translation, that's not the NIV, because just slow down when you're reading it. Like, these dudes could not stand Joseph at all. Like, okay, let me slow down. Have you ever in your life known someone that you can't stand them so much to the point that, like, you wouldn't even care if they were on fire, you wouldn't even piss on them? Like, pre-Christianity, okay? Or have you ever caught wind of someone that couldn't stand someone to the point like this was it? Joseph was the firstborn son of his most beloved wife. Everything else is secondary. Reuben is the firstborn son. He's chopped liver. Simeon is next, then Levi. Here you come, the two last dopey dopes, Jacob. So all the brothers are already born. Joseph and Benjamin are the last ones. But even then, I don't even like Benjamin as the last one. Joseph is his firstborn to the wife that he wanted anyway. Like, I wonder if Leah was even well, yeah, he did love her in the end because he buried her. Versus Rachel, he just buried her on the way to like point A to point B. She's buried somewhere in between point A and point B. Like, he wouldn't even be able to just like, oh, let me go visit her. Well, I don't even think they did that back then. Like, visiting I don't know. I don't know that for a fact, so let me not even open my mouth on that. So anyway, he's the only one that had a coat of many colors. Probably feeling himself all the time. And so when he had that first dream, with the sheaths bending to, like, he was a sheath, and then his brothers also had sheaths. And that their sheaths, I'm not pronouncing it right, I can feel it, bowed down to his sheath. But his father didn't say nothing. But the second time he has a dream with the stars, how his brothers were the stars, and his dad was the sun, and his mom was the moon, and like Jacob had to like, hey, what you saying that me and your mom's gonna bow down to you? Man, you done lost your mind. But he held that in his heart. So now Joseph had a dream, and when he told to his brothers, they hated him even more. Okay, boop, let's pause right there. What did we just learn from that little sentence? This is what I mean. Like, I've read this part before, but now it just stuck out to me right now. Joseph had a dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. Like, they hated him, and him having that dream caused them to hate him more than what they hated him prior to him telling him the story. I am seeking my brother. He said, tell me please where they have pastured the flock. And the man said, they have gone away, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. When they saw him from afar, so they already knew it was him because he's the only person in freaking Canaan with a coat of many colors. And so when they saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. That's hate. That's your brother, like your flesh and bone. And they hated him so much that they, like, first of all, wanting to kill somebody, it goes through steps. First, y'all get along. But then something happens where it separates you in your heart. Then they say something, you're like, oh yeah, you still get along. But then after a while, that little pebble starts going down the hill and starts becoming a bigger snowball. And now, when you see them, then after that person talks, just like, oh, shut up. Then you don't even want to be around them. Then you stop talking to them completely. But y'all related. Then add to that, he's the favorite son, and he's probably always up his dad's butt, and they see these things of him playing favoritism between Jacob and Joseph. So this has already been like, he's 17 at this point. So this 17 years of this brewing that they just like, why don't we just kill him? We already know he's gonna get the portion of the firstborn son, because technically he is a firstborn. He is not Jacob's firstborn, but he is Rachel's firstborn. So their father's already coming up in age. Is he gonna give us a portion of something, and Joseph is gonna get everything? Like, we just kill him and let's get rid of him. This was hate, like straight hate. Okay. Anyway, so before we get to chapter 38, they sell him into slavery.